So I am getting this line target ready for pouring in foam, mixing and pouring in foam. And what I'm doing right now is securing the poly on the underside of the target where the backstop is going to be. And you need to relieve room when you're doing this so that you've got enough room for the foam to expand a bit and go right out to the perimeter of the hole. And I'm stapling the poly here and bunching it up a little bit so there's a little bit of expansion room. Otherwise it bleeds through the poly on the sides and kind of blows it out a bit. But this way there's a little bit of expansion room there. And industrial staple gun, of course, and lots of staples to secure it in place so that the foam does not bleed through where and pop the staples. And you have to secure this poly quite well, otherwise it's just going to bleed out the bottom when the foam expands, and you lose quite a bit of foam that way. And when you lose quite a bit of foam in the repair, it means you have to mix up another batch of the repair foam very quickly, which I have had to do in the past, and it doesn't always work out the greatest. So that should be nice and tight enough with all the staples so that I can put the end cap in place and get a good backstop for when I pour the foam in. And I will secure this end cap with stapled duct tape so that we get a good seal around the backside of this target. And this spot here is the only spot that might be a little bit of a problem, so I'm going to secure that really well with the duct tape and staple the duct tape in place. Just get some more staples here. And the usual duct tape. And in all my years of doing this, I have every target, I learn something every time I do another target, especially if it's a target that I haven't repaired before. So put some more bullets in there. And every target is different, especially the contours around the hole. And sometimes I have to do a fair bit of improvising on site with strips of sheet metal just to cover off any weak spots. But with the poly and the end cap in place on here, then hopefully I get a good seal. And I may have to put a strip of sheet metal in there because there's a leg contour here that leads to a bit of an open spot. So I'll just move that around a bit and flatten it out there so that the seal is better and there's less of a weak spot or an open spot exposed. Like I said, with every single target being different, you got to be a little bit of an improviser and adapt so that you end up getting a good dense foam repair and not have foam that just bleeds out everywhere. Duct tape, the handyman's secret weapon, and the target repairman's sometimes the best friend. And don't be afraid to use way more duct tape than you think you're going to need, because the more duct tape you use, the stronger your backstop is going to be. And we staple the duct tape in place so that the foam does not bleed out where you have duct taped, and it helps to hold the backstop in better. This particular method of repairing targets is time consuming and it's messy, but I think, as you can see from, if you visited my YouTube channel with that Timberwolf repair, you'll see that the finished product is worth taking your time and doing it properly. Because the last thing you want is a repair target that the foam is soupy, or you don't do it well because you haven't prepped the target as well as you should have. And doing target repair is by no means my side hustle, because really what club could afford to pay me what I think I'm worth an hour to do this? Because it would be pretty expensive if I was to do this at retail rates. But I am a long-time volunteer with the club, and I give plenty of my time for all aspects of running our club. And before I started doing target repair like this, I figured somebody in our club better learn how to do this to save the club some money, because inserts are not cheap and new targets are definitely not cheap. And if they can be repaired, then by all means I will learn how to repair them. So I did. So as you can see, I'm using plenty of duct tape to secure this backstop in place so that it does not, when the foam expands, it does not bleed out the bottom. Like I said, you will lose a lot of repair foam if you don't secure this in place enough to try and make sure that it does not bleed out the bottom. Because when you pour the foam in, doing it this way, it is going to go to the bottom of this end cap and then start to rise and expand. And you want it to rise and expand this way and not just bleed out the bottom. So just like any other painting or repair job, the better you do your preparation, the better your result is going to be. So I'm just about to the point where this backstop is ready. And where I got the idea for this backstop method is from one of my employees who is a sheet metal journeyman. There we go. So most of that is covered off. Just going to cover off this one other side. Now this is a time-consuming way to do this, but with the nature of the foam and the expansion of the foam and the need to bake the foam to get good repair foam consistency, this is not a quick repair by any means, and you get years of good shootability with this particular foam. So I have never used anything but this Flex Foam IT17. And where I get the foam itself is from a business that is in Alberta. That way I am not calling or ordering from Smooth On Corp, who makes this foam, and paying duties and tariffs and customs charges and all that. I get it from one guy, and I usually get it next day when I order it, which is very convenient. Oh, out of bullets. Go through a lot of staples here. Better to use too many staples than not enough staples. So, this backstop is pretty much ready for the foam. There's one more spot back here that I have to close off because it's a bit of an open spot. Like I say, I want to make sure that the foam does not bleed through the bottom when it starts to expand. So I'll cover off this last spot and staple this duct tape in place. There. So now, as you can see, there is a backstop and it's got poly lining, so the foam will push down to go down into the backstop, into the poly, and then it will start to rise up this way. And I'm securing the angle of this guy with just 2x4s so that it's a nice stable surface. So now I'm going to get my foam and my mixing containers and start to mix up the foam. And like I said, the depth of this target is going to require a good mix. So like I said, I will be using 10 cups of part B and then 5 cups of part A, and then mix it around. This particular foam has a pot life of 60 seconds before it starts to heat and expand. So it's quite a little bit time sensitive to get the foam mixed and then poured in and then covered off so that it expands the right direction, expands up to here. Hopefully it expands right to the perimeters so that this perimeter here is untraceable after the foam has been poured in and starts to set. So I will start another video when I start to mix the foam.